A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. So glad you've joined me on the program today. So the bad news is that New York's new concealed carry restrictions are now in effect. A federal judge declining to block the new laws from being enforced beginning today. Although he said the arguments that were made were compelling, the judge found that the plaintiffs in this case did not have standing to sue. We will have more on that in the days to come at Bearing Arms. The lawsuits, I think, are going to continue. And frankly, as a result of what Governor Kathy Hochul said yesterday, dropping a bombshell on those who had applied for a concealed carry license over the past couple of weeks, county officials who were telling people, hey, listen, as long as you apply before September the 1st, you're applying under the old rules. Governor Hochul said yesterday, no, that's not the case. Basically, if your application for a concealed carry permit has not been formally approved by midnight last night, doesn't matter. You've got to start all over again under the new rules. And this is going to lead to massive delays for folks in New York City and New York State, frankly, who want to exercise their right to bear arms in self-defense. There are some counties right now, because the demand is so high and because now the new rules are so onerous that it's going to take so much longer to process these applications, that there's already a waiting period of more than a year in some counties before you can simply drop off your application and start the process of exercising a fundamental constitutionally protected right. So even though these laws are in effect today, the litigation is going to continue. And I would expect, actually, it's going to heat up here in the weeks to come. The good news is that New York-style carry restrictions are not coming to California, at least not right away. Gun owners in California actually notched two significant victories yesterday. My colleague Tom Knighton, writing about one of these victories at Bearing Arms, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the show today talking about it, but a bill that would have increased taxes on firearms and ammunition, this was AB 1227, went down to defeat in the California legislature yesterday. It did have a majority support, but because the bill was authored as an emergency measure, it needed a supermajority to pass, and it came 7 votes short of a passage in the state Senate. This bill would have imposed a 10% excise tax on sales of handguns, an 11% sales tax on rifles and shotguns, ammunition, and parts used to build firearms starting July 1st of next year. There were two Democratic senators joining Republicans in opposition, other Democrats withholding their votes. And I'm sure that Delegate Mark Levine, or Assemblyman Mark Levine, will try again next year. But for now, the excise tax increase in California is a no-go, as are, again, these new carry restrictions. This is the headline from the Los Angeles Times. Concealed carry gun bill dies in California legislature despite the backing from top Democrats. And again, this is huge for gun owners in California. This was AB 918. And again, it would have imposed a lot of the same restrictions that were seen in place in New York on California gun owners. As the LA Times reports, the bill faced headwinds from the outset, again, because State Senator Anthony Portantino tried to do this under an emergency measure, so it could go into effect immediately. But that requires, again, a supermajority of the state legislature. The assembly, there was apparently a preliminary vote earlier this week that was close, but no dice. And so all day Wednesday, Portantino and other Democrats were lobbying some of their colleagues to vote for the measure. Just go ahead, hold your nose and vote for it. Just come on, please do it. But as the LA Times reports, the assembly upheld its decision early Thursday morning with a final 52-23 vote, despite those proponents and Attorney General Rob Bonta lobbying extensively for this bill. Portantino said, quote, "I'm legitimately surprised it didn't pass." And he, too, Vowed to revive the measure in December when lawmakers can start introducing bills that will take effect next year. Rob Bonta, the Attorney General in California, said the supermajority vote made passing the bill more difficult, but he defended the urgency of implementing this gun control measure, arguing that those who pose a public safety risk need to be prevented from being issued a permit. He says, quote, the longer it takes to get this bill into effect, the more people are at risk every day. Now, keep in mind, the law, the May issue law that was struck down by the Supreme Court in New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin was only in effect in a handful of states like California, New York, Maryland, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Hawaii. Most of the country has already adopted shall issue concealed carry. Half the country's adopted constitutional carry. And what Rob Bonta says, well, we got to try to, keep dangerous people from accessing guns. California criminals have no problem accessing firearms. There was just a story yesterday about a 13-year-old in Oakland, California, who brought a gun to school and shot a classmate, accidentally, supposedly. But if 13-year-olds are illegally carrying firearms in California, I would argue that California's gun control laws are not stopping criminals from obtaining or carrying firearms because they're willing to break the law. It's the law-abiding citizens who are impacted by these restrictions that Bonta, Portantino, and other Democrats wanted to put in place. As the LA Times reports, the proposal would have classified dozens of places in California as, quote, sensitive, including courts, which would probably be allowed, hospitals, which may be allowed, airports. I doubt whether that would actually stand, at least, before you go through security. Public transportation, again, I have big questions about that. Bars, questions about that. Public parks, real questions about the legality of that. Libraries and churches, again, places that are not necessarily sensitive in terms of increased security and increased law enforcement presence. California, like New York, seems to be wanting to define sensitive place as any place where members of the public might be, which the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do when we're talking again about a general right to carry for self-defense in public. The LA Times reports that SB 918 also would have required local licensing officials, primarily sheriff's departments, to run through a list of criteria to ensure that a person was a, quote, qualified applicant, having to conduct an in-person interview at least 3 character references, and review social media and other publicly available statements to determine if those applying for permits were a danger to the public or themselves. Again, provisions that are in place in New York and provisions that will delay, at the very least, the issuance of carry permits, and I would say in many cases will outright deny law-abiding citizens who are perfectly capable of going and purchasing a firearm. They can pass a background check. They're not prohibited persons, but they will still be denied their access to bear arms because of the restrictions that are in place in New York. Thankfully, again, these restrictions are not going to be in place in California. At least not for a few more months. We'll see what happens again in December when Portantino reintroduces this measure and the legislature gets back into session in January. I'm not aware of any special session that might be called by Gavin Newsom between now and then, although that obviously is subject to change. But for the moment anyway, California has, in essence, a shall issue system that hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm sure in some anti-gun jurisdictions like, San Francisco and maybe even Los Angeles County, it's not going to be pure shall issue in practice. But this, I think, is a huge step forward for gun owners. And I hope that we will see the number of applications increase dramatically now that residents have a fair shot of actually getting a permit. Because the more people who apply, the more people who are approved, the more concealed carry we see in parts of the state that have traditionally been very hostile to the right to keep and bear arms. I think the harder it is going to be for California Democrats to try to put these types of restrictions in place. Meanwhile, again, we've hopefully got a bit of a head start in New York so that if California does impose these regulations, we've already got a court case challenging similar restrictions already underway, albeit 3,000 miles across the country. But congratulations to California gun owners. This is big. This is really big. And I hope that gun owners across the state of California are going to take advantage now of the opportunity to not only exercise the right to keep arms, but to bear them in self-defense as well. All right, let's turn our attention now to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a case out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where a man accused of killing a local pizzeria owner has a long criminal history, according to KOB in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Sylvan Alchachupas, accused of shooting and killing Rosario Zito, who's the owner of Giovanni's Pizzeria, back on Tuesday night. As KOB reports, Alchachupas has been in and out of jail for the past 8 years. In fact, they say he was arrested less than a month ago in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You can see, again, a variety of the mugshots that Mr. Alchachupas has acquired over the years. A history of arrests go back to 2014, charges including things like shoplifting, drug possession, car theft, fleeing the cops. But this is also not the first time that he's been accused of armed robbery. Back in July of 2020, police say that Alchachupas pulled a gun on the cashier at a Los Lunas Speedway gas station and robbed the place. In January of this year, he ended up taking a plea deal in Valencia County in a case from August of 2020, pleading guilty to charges of robbery and assault, and he was sentenced to 5 years of probation. That's it. Not a day in prison. Originally accused of armed robbery, but again, the gun charge was dropped. He pleads down to lesser charges of just robbery and assault, and instead of going to prison, Mr. Alchachupas was told, hey, stay on the straight and narrow for the next 5 years, and this will all go away. Well, according to police, he couldn't do it. On August 3rd, police arrested Alchachupas after they pulled over a stolen car. He was in the driver's seat. He was then released from jail immediately. Wasn't sent back to prison for violating the terms of his probation. In fact, August 24th, a probation violation order was filed in Valencia County, arguing that Alchachupas had failed to follow the conditions of his release, but he wasn't taken into custody. He failed to show up to court on August 30th for a hearing tied to that car theft. That was the same day as the murder in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So once again, the legal system had plenty of opportunities to take this murder suspect into custody, to send him back to prison for violating the terms of his probation. And frankly, again, he should have gone to prison for armed robbery earlier this year, but that didn't happen. You've got New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham running on a pro-gun control platform right now in her reelection bid. And I hope that her Republican opponent will bring up cases like this to point out that it's not legal law-abiding gun owners in New Mexico who are driving crime. And focusing on them will not make the public any safer. The criminal justice system, not only in New Mexico, but around the country, is in dire need of reform. And until that happens, again, we're going to see more stories like this every single day of the week. Today's armed citizen story from Washington State, where police say a burglary suspect was shot in Pierce County after a homeowner opened fire on suspected burglars. Again, the burglar who was shot, taken to the hospital in critical condition. It was just about 6:30 this morning, Thursday morning, when police got the call about a burglary. And I guess it was near Spanaway Park in Parkland, Washington. The Pierce County Sheriff's Department says one of the burglary suspects injured in the shooting, sent to the hospital again in critical condition. The second suspect fleeing the scene has not yet been located. Detectives are at the scene. They say the investigation is ongoing. Again, this happened this morning, so we don't have a whole lot of details. But at this point, again, we do know that the homeowner shot one of the two alleged intruders. Don't believe that the homeowner is facing any charges, but we will keep our eyes on this story and try to bring you any updates as they become available. Finally today, our good deed of the day from Livonia, Michigan. In the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. 3 teens who were driving past a burning home when they saw what was going on and ended up helping to save 2 people who were inside that house. Click on Detroit, reporting on the incident. Describing the teen's actions as nothing short of heroic. Ethan Morche, Chase Adams, Colin Anderson say that they noticed smoke coming from the roof of a home Monday afternoon as they drove past. They stopped the car. Chase and Ethan then called 911. Someone inside the home was shouting, so Chase Adams and Ethan Morche tried to get inside the front door, but they couldn't, so they went around the back. They found an unlocked sliding glass door. Colin Anderson, meanwhile, is outside, on the phone, trying to tell Livonia firefighters that there were people inside, including, at that point, his two friends. Chase Adams was able to help one of the occupants exit the home, according to officials, and then when he called out to his friend Ethan and didn't get a response, he went back inside, helped escort another person to safety. Livonia Fire and Rescue Chief Robert Jennison told Click on Detroit, quote, "We couldn't be more proud of these young men who remained calm and did the right thing and were directly responsible for saving the lives of two of their neighbors. They could have just drove by, but instead they decided to take action. And they stopped this incident from becoming a tragedy, resulting in a loss of life." The residents of the home, as well as the three teens, treated for minor smoke inhalation, but thankfully they were all released there at the scene. No serious injuries reported. So, again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Ethan Morche, Chase Adams, Colin Anderson, we thank you for your very, very good deed. Now, listen, that is all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I am going to be off next week, so you will not get a new episode of Cam & Company for a few days. But we will still be updating BearingArms.com throughout my absence. I promise you, you will still be able to access all of the latest Second Amendment news and information that you need to know about. And, of course, if something huge breaks, I'll fire up the laptop and I'll chime in as well. Because, sometimes even when you're on vacation, the news does not allow you to rest. Again, want to thank you for being a part of the program, not just today, but each and every day. I really do appreciate it. If you do like what you see at Bearing Arms, I would also encourage you to become a VIP member. All you have to do, go to BearingArms.com/subscribe, use the promo code GUNRIGHTS, and you can get a significant savings on your VIP membership. As our way of saying thanks for showing your support, we're going to give you exclusive news stories, analysis, stuff you won't find anywhere else because your support does matter, and it really does make a difference. I hope you have a fantastic week and a great weekend as well. I'll talk to you soon, but until then, be well, be safe, be free.